the ground and pierced through its body from almost every single direction. Aang knew that Pervy could disintegrate its body, so he already thought of a plan to just ensure that the core was visible. He knew that even if the demon disintegrated, the core would still remain in place. As he held the demon firmly in its place, he stated that it had grossly overestimated itself. Its core was being pulled away from it, and the demon had nothing it could do. It could only watch as its life was stripped away right from its grimy hands. Aang held the core in his hand, and now our boy had complete power over this loser. As he moved it closer to his mouth, Aang knew that even a 7-fin demon would die once its core is destroyed, so Pervy was just small fry. He gave it one last smile, as he told the demon that he would be taking its water-type powers. He stood towering above the demon. All of the power was his, and the demon had nothing to do but accept its death. The demon started to melt away, turning into its original form, water. It drizzled down into nothingness, dripping away slowly against the roots of our currently wood-type hero. As Aang walked away from the battle, with the red moon shining upon him, he held the core up in his hand, ready to absorb its demonic goodness. And so he did, closing his fist tightly, which made the core shatter completely. He drank the water that poured out from within it, while laughing like a maniac as he had just unlocked a whole new level of strength. Yet deep within this confident surface, the demonic thoughts had started to invade our hero's psyche. With his opponent defeated, Aang now stands under the full moon, holding its core in his hand. He crushes the blue demon's core with his half-demonic hand, and starts drinking its essence as if he was drunk with power. Needless to say, each drop of the core's essence was making his powers surge. His red aura soon transformed into a more stable shade of blue, as Aang licked his lips to comment that it didn't taste bad. He then glances over at Sidu Liu right behind him, who was still unconscious on the ground, protected by a layer of green core energy. The girl looked peaceful in her little cocoon, but perhaps her life was still in danger. With his newly devoured powers, Aang turned himself into blue squirt and started moving over towards the unconscious girl. Once next to her, his body started solidifying itself, giving me some serious Terminator vibes. As the liquid finally assembled back into Aang, we see that one half of his body is still demonic, almost as if he was evolving. The Demon King's voice in his head spoke to him, telling him that he's meant to devour the demons, but kill the humans. Aang, possessed and out of control, repeated after the voice in his head, ready to do its bidding. He stood tall of Sidu Liu, smiling like a serial killer toying with his victim, ready to land the finishing blow on the girl. And he didn't hesitate either, because his blow managed to shatter the girl's protection shield immediately. Blood was supposed to splatter, and Sidu's life was supposed to be forfeit. However, just as his demon claw could reach for her face, Aang managed to stop it. He bit his lip to fight back the brainwash, and cursed his pathetic self for losing control. In fact, he had to let his entire human hand get pierced in order to stop his demonic side. Looks like he had finally gained some strength to fight back the Demon King's control. Even if he is possessed, Aang was once the protector of humanity. Hurting another human goes against his deepest-rooted principles, and Sidu Liu is someone he has only ever wanted to protect. So, with the mental strength of someone who can actually afford to call himself the former king of all humans, Aang shouted apart the demon in his head, fighting to take back control of his own body. This came as an immense surprise to the Demon King's spirit, who had never expected that a human would be able to resist his will. But since he found it very interesting, he decided not to put up a fight, and disappeared quietly into Aang's heart. While all of that happened, a massive human versus demon battle was still being fought at the city walls. Lan Snow and Makoto stood back to back with each other on top of the walls, where the finless demons had now started to climb up. Snow, with all his explosive power, charged up a fist to fight back the demons. His attack was aimed at the ground, and the shockwave of his thrust was used to propel the finless bastards out of the walls. Of course, Makoto managed to maneuver out of the impact with her agility. Snow was now frustrated, wondering why every other team had gathered to fight the demons, but Aang and Sidu were still nowhere to be found. As Makoto effortlessly dodged the claw swipe of a blue demon, with all her assets bouncing up and down, and her knife twirling in her hands, she informed Snow that 2 warriors snuck out of the city earlier, and were targeted by 1-fin demons. She uses the same knife to thrust into the demon's throat in a single killing blow, without even looking at it, and continues that she's almost certain that the warriors in question were their teammates. Lan Snow immediately loses his shit upon hearing that, wondering why their idiot friends would do something so irrational. And honestly, he's completely right. Makoto knows that too, but her head hurts just thinking about it. Right now, she's too worried that her friends are being targeted by 1-fin demons, whom they probably stand no chance to fight against. Snow has a lot of questions, starting with why 2 1-fin demon would appear in such a remote area, but the fight ahead of him takes priority. So, they both put all the questions behind them, and continue to focus on enduring the demon wave in front of them, as yet another huge blue monster scales the walls. Meanwhile, Gel and Tang were charging into the enemy hordes as independent ballistic units. Even though they were managing to incapacitate them with one strike after another, the demons were seemingly endless, and a huge number of them were starting to scale the city walls. The edgelord was fighting close to them as well, and as he cut a line through the demons, his first priority was to ask the other leaders if their cores were still intact. Over here, Tainted had leapt up into the air, his fist drawn back, and a large group of scary-looking demons looking at him. As he came crashing down on a poor bastard, splattering its green blood everywhere, the other demons were also forced to fly away from the impact. He then turned to the edgelord, informing him that his core isn't exhausted, and Gel should be doing the same as well. We now see Gel drawing her left leg back into a kick, but making me look in all the wrong places, all the while thinking that if they hadn't fought the one-fin demon together, their cores would have been depleted of energy. Of course, her kick eventually comes out and thwarts away a bunch of demons with the sheer gust of her force. And as they all circle together in the middle of the horde, Gel asks the edgelord about their next plan. The dude makes the observation that the finless demon's attacks have decreased significantly ever since the one-fin demon was defeated. And since the other one fin went somewhere else, the entire army has turned into soldiers without a commander. These finless guys have no thoughts of their own, and they're simply attacking aimlessly at everything. He then states how the finless demons are known to understand the fear of death, and one way to make them back out would be to make them fear the humans. He tells Tainted and Gel that they would use this opportunity to weaken their desire to attack, and buy time for the soldiers on the wall to call for backup. It was time for an explosive battle. Of course, as their cores glowed with surging energy, both Tainted and Gel agreed to the plan immediately. The demons were shaken by a sudden disturbance in the force, as both warriors went Super Saiyan mode in the middle of the battle. They jumped high up into the air, getting themselves a bird's eye view of the entire field. The cameraman once again found the best ever angle to give us all the right shots, as the warriors got ready to rain hell upon their enemies. They kicked back the air like Sanji from One Piece, and came crashing down like comets to explode on the battlefield. Their twirling motion and gathering energy was about to crash land on the finless demons. And soon as it happened, a massive number of the creatures was blown away by the cackling red thunder of the impact. A massive whirlpool of dust and debris opened up right in front of the city, scattering the demon wave in all directions. As the smoke cleared, the glowing red silhouettes of our champion leaders emerged. After the attack on the one-fin demon, this was the second time these two had to combine their core energies in a battle, and if their codes and their bodies had no limitations, they could keep doing this until they killed all the demons. But they both know that such is not the case, so they step forward once again, and leap straight onto a different spot to cause yet another catastrophic impact while their bodies can still endure. Meanwhile, back on the ground, our edgelord is fighting a battle of his own. While it's true that the red cores have the most explosive energy, you can't sleep on the lethality of his blue core either. He kicks off the ground and shoots straight into the enemies with the speed of a fighter jet. His agility is unmatched, and he slices up the dastardly demons with one quick slash after another, leaving a wave of corpses in his wake. Makoto and Snow had the pleasure of witnessing their squadron leaders fight at their full power, dividing up the demons into small and smaller waves. This was the first time they had come to know about their real strength. Snow was starting to feel a bit jealous of their prowess, and he felt a strong desire to fight like his leaders as well. It has now been a while, and the edgelord is starting to get exhausted. The others are in similar conditions, but their bodies can still hold on, and their eyes are still showing focus. Most importantly, their desire to fight off the demons is overpowering their exhaustion. The three leaders stood in front of the city gates, and the enemy army had now thinned down by a considerable margin. Since the remaining demons were scared and starting to back off, the edgelord figured that it was the perfect time to cheer up the other warriors. He turned his head towards the walls, informing his warriors that the demons were falling apart, and it was time for them to replenish their strength and keep on fighting. The fledgling warriors of the city all shouted with happiness, thanking their squadron leaders, and refueling themselves with newfound energy. With this, the edgelord was sure that the demon army would finally be forced to retreat for good. However, his eyes were soon shot open, as his senses warned him about the presence of an overwhelming demonic energy in the vicinity. He looked in the direction of the demons, and warned the others that something dangerous was coming in their direction, perhaps the one-fin demon who ran away earlier. As the smoke dissipated from the scene, the demons were instinctively starting to make way for the anonymous silhouette to pass through. What came out of the smoke was a true surprise to all the squadron leaders, who could hardly believe their eyes. It was none other than our boy Aang, holding the unconscious Sidu Liu in his arms. He walked casually among the demons, who kept drawing away from him with each step he took closer. His face and expression was still clouded in mystery, but his peers started calling out his name as soon as they recognized him. He had now managed to cross the demon line in the direction of the city, and no creature dared to bare its fangs against him. Gel could clearly see that Aang and Sidu were back, but she was confused as to what could have happened to the one-fin demon. Meanwhile, the edgelord is starting to notice that the demons are getting restless again, and he's worried that Aang might get attacked very soon. And his hunch turns out to be right, as the frightened and berserk demons lash out at our hero with their razor-sharp claws. Of course, the squadron leaders wouldn't let that happen, so they started rushing to the rescue. Unfortunately, they were still too far, and the claws of the demons were inching ever so closer to our hero. But then, just as they were about to deal some serious visceral damage, Aang looked back at the demons with the intense glare of their king, ordering them to fuck out of his sight. All the attacking finless halted their movement. They were too scared of the existence that stood before them. And when Aang's threatening aura started to circle him, all of the surrounding demons jumped back with fear. One of the finless was down on his knees, looking at our hero's feet and trembling. His fear made him flinch and claw into the dirt, until he eventually decided to haul ass and get as far away from Aang as possible. Watching the red demon flee grabbed the attention of the remaining finless, which triggered a domino effect, as they all started running to flee away from Aang. My man stood in the middle like Moses, and the red sea of demons parted ways at his presence, allowing him to walk freely in the middle. Tang and Gel stopped their rush when they witnessed this bizarre scene. And in a matter of moments, as everyone else saw from the top of the wall, the entire area was free of the demon invasion. The warriors couldn't believe their eyes at first when they watched the demons leave, but their surprise soon turned into loud cheers as the reality settled in. A battle was fought, and they had come out victorious. Some warriors started discussing among themselves why the demons would leave so abruptly, but the answer was obvious to the rest. They all cheered on their heroic squadron leader because they were sure that the enemy fled after witnessing their overwhelming strength. But things weren't so obvious for the leaders in question. In fact, they were left wondering if the reason for the demons' escape was something else. Tang was the one with the strongest hunch, because as he looked at Aang, and how fearless he stood next to the demons, the instructor knew that something was definitely wrong. And then, as our hero inhaled some large breaths, his knees finally caved in, and Sidhu was dropped from his hands. Looks like he was on the verge of collapse the entire time, but his sheer willpower kept him awake. Tang noticed the boy's fall, and with a concerned look in his eyes, he and the other leaders started running to fetch their students. Everyone obviously had a lot of questions on their minds, but Tang warned the others that their students' safety comes first. And with that, Aang could finally close his eyes to a deep slumber. The next thing he knew, he found himself floating atop a giant demon skull in the middle of a crimson sea. A voice whispered in his mind, telling him that he really likes using his powers. Aang was now conscious, and he asked the voice to reveal its identity. The voice kept resounding around him like a void, telling him that they had met half a century ago, and that Aang should be able to remember it. And sure enough, our hero already had a vague idea. He recalled the image of the two 8-fin demons who annihilated him in his last battle, and assumed that the voice belonged to one of the two. He asks the voice if there are more such demons in the world, but he gets assured that he will come to know about their existence in the future. Aang's eyes widen at that response, and as he looks to the side, the king of demons is sitting right next to him in all his naked glory. There's a very small portion of my audience who's going to squeal at this image, and I just want to let you know, I don't mind. The demon tells our hero that he is called the Crimson Fin Demon, and he is the strongest 8-fin demon to ever exist. Hearing that, our boy Aang just stares at him blankly, probably admiring his incredible abs. The Crimson King smiles when he sees that Aang isn't scared of him at all, which only confirms why he was able to reject him previously. He informs our hero that he won't harm him in any way, at least for now, but Aang has some other questions in mind. He wants to know why he was chosen, and he wants to know what has been happening to his body. That's a lot of questions for their first encounter, and the Crimson King is a bit too lazy to answer. Another hand touches Aang's neck from behind, startling him quite a bit. And as we zoom out, we see that the demon made another copy of himself to answer our hero, which only tells him that there's no need to rush. After all, his plans to Aang will be revealed eventually. He slides his fingernail across our hero's hardened muscles, informing that they now share the same body. And in order to keep both of them safe, Aang will have to work hard at evolving himself in the future. I know some of you guys are squealing again, but I have to move on to the next panel before I get demonetized. The copy starts to dissipate, and the real Crimson King now stands in front of our hero. He opens his arms in his direction, telling him to quickly get stronger so he can once again become the perfect existence that he was. Aang was now gaining the strength to get up on his feet, and he was starting to grow pretty tired of being looked down upon. So, he told the bitch to not underestimate him, and came out swinging to show him who's boss. But of course, he was just dreaming the entire time, and when he opens his eyes, he's holding someone's collar. That someone is none other than Sidhu Liu, and Aang is now surrounded by everyone who was present on the scene. My man's sleep-talking ended in him grabbing the collar of a white angel, and he got the pleasure of laying his eyes upon some beautifully white marshmallows. You guys don't get to experience the same view, because I still want to stay monetized. Aang was now starting to resemble a monkey, his eyes still fixated on the goods, but his brain clearly warning him that he's fucked. Naturally, he had his lights blown out in the next moment, which he seriously deserved. While redressing herself, the girl ordered the others to bury the bastard, and poor Aang was pinned down to the ground immediately. If you look closely, you can even notice her handprint on his face. But, just as Sidhu was about to leave, a familiar voice from behind told her that her actions were nonsense. The 3 squadron leaders were back, and someone dressed similarly to Sidhu was leading them from the front. According to him, it was wrong of her to treat her life's savior in such a brutish fashion. Everyone in the hall greeted the man as their master, and Sidhu greeted him as her father. Aang was still on the ground after the beating, but his eyes perked up when he heard the word father. Looking up at the man once again, it is now revealed to us that this fellow is Sidhu Liu's father and a person of great importance in the city. The edgelord takes on the humble job of introducing the man, starting with his name, Sidhu-san. He is the leader of the most famous martial arts sect in the Helios city and also the head of the Sidhu family. Aang scans the man with his observing eye, noting that Sidhu's father has probably been taking care of him while he was in a coma. Once he realizes that, our hero gets up on his feet to politely greet the sect leader, thanking him for taking care of him while he was unconscious. I want to make a comment about their body proportions here, but I guess Sidhu's father is a man with a huge skeleton. He's also a man with a cheerful personality, as he tells Aang to not stand on formalities, because taking care of him was the least he could do. The towering man pats our hero on the shoulder, telling him that he has saved his daughter's life, and his family would forever be indebted to him for his extraordinary courage. He then turns to the squadron leaders behind him and orders them to let everyone in the dojo rest for today. Once everyone is well rested, they will start the celebration for the demon wave's retreat. The leaders refer to him as uncle and bow their heads while accepting his orders. Once again, the kind man tells the leader to not be so formal, since he has watched them all grow ever since they were kids. Instead, he tells everyone to treat the dojo as their home and take good care of his daughter going forward. She has a prickly personality, but he wants the instructors to train her with the same strictness that they show to the others. Tainted assures the sect leader that he has no reason to worry, since they will always do their best for the sake of their students. Of course, being the brat that she's known to be, our girl clicks her tongue in annoyance. She knows that her training will be even harder going forward. In any case, before any of that happens, Tainted wants everyone but Aang to leave the hall. He's got a fuck ton of questions, and this time, he will make sure to get all of his answers. In a matter of minutes, the hall is emptied, and the 3 squadron leaders stand face to face with Aang, dwarfing him with their presence. Tainted is the first to speak, and he wants to know how our hero not only managed to escape the one-fin demon in the warrior exam, but also the one from the demon wave. However, the edgelord cuts him off as he was being too careful with his question. There's a much more pressing issue that they need to find out, and they can't afford to talk in circles. So, the edgelord takes the lead, and states that he will do the questioning instead. Aang was nervous with the whole deal, but it didn't stop the edgelord from asking his question. All 3 squadron leaders stand menacingly in front of him, radiating their threatening aura, with the first squadron leader starting the inquiry. His question was simple. He wants to know if Aang is a demon. I wonder what our hero will answer, and is there a way for him to avoid such a direct question at all? The squadron leaders have asked him if he's a demon, and our hero now has a lot to answer as he sits there silently. His expression is numb, his eyes shot up, and he has no clue how to respond. The leaders on the other hand stay firm, their eyes observant, and their ears eager for the answer. But of course, Aang refutes the question entirely. He comments that the squadron leaders must be joking with him, because he barely escaped the clutches of a one-fin, so how could he be a demon himself? But this is where the edgelord had a follow-up question. He replies that one of those demons was killed by Tainted and gel with their combined powers. And with a smug look on his face, he wants to know if Aang is claiming that he was able to kill the other one by himself. He leans in closer to our hero, asking him directly how he managed to escape with Liu. Aang feels cornered and out of options, and he's left wondering if coming out with the truth is the only choice left. The edgelord gets even more direct this time, proposing a theory that maybe Aang was able to escape because he's in cahoots with the demons. Once again, Aang is seriously contemplating whether he should reveal the entire truth, but if he does, he is quite afraid of the consequences. Worst case scenario, he's worried that the squadron leaders will kill him on the spot. Even if he somehow explains that he's still mostly human, the threat of demonic existence inside him will put everyone on high alert, probably turning them hostile. After all, Aang's body right now is the host to the strongest demon to ever exist. It has quite literally been hijacked by a king. The edgelord is getting a bit impatient with Aang's silence, and as he conjures up an energy blade in his hand, he warns our hero that he will resort to violence if he doesn't get any answers. With the weapon dangling in front of him, Aang wonders if he should fight the leaders and try to escape, because he really doesn't see any other option. But then, the ever-beautiful Gel comes to his rescue, telling the edgelord to chill down on his edginess. Putting back her hair, the sexy squadron leader explains that only 4-fin demons and above can transform into humans. Aang doesn't look strong enough to be a 4-fin demon, and such an entity wouldn't have any reason to infiltrate a C-ranked city. Tainted has one more thing to comment on that, which is the fact that demons don't have any concept of comradeship. They are selfish and ruthless, and would never hesitate to kill the humans. However, Aang risked his life to get back Liu, which would never make sense if he was actually a demon. As it turns out, the edgelord knew that as well, so he just pats our hero on the back and tells the others to not be so tense. He was just teasing him a little. As expected of the edgelord, his sense of humor is fucked. He then goes easy on Aang, telling him that he really managed to cheat death along with Liu, which must be very hard on his mind. However, Tainted adds that according to Liu, she had fainted during the fight with the One Fin and doesn't remember anything else that happened. And if Aang saved her from the jaws of death, the squadron leaders want to know exactly what happened. Gel speculates the unthinkable and wonders if Aang really managed to kill the blue core demon on his own. Her question made our hero's shaky eyes calm down as he figured out a way to dodge this interrogation. Until now, he had only been focusing on the demon inside him, but he forgot that the leaders were only curious about his fight with the blue bastard. So, changing his attitude entirely, our boy poked out a tongue and boldly claimed that he's a fucking genius. You might notice the reactions of the leaders at the bottom, and I want you to know that I'm making the same face. Anyway, Aang realizes that he might have gone too far with the overacting, so he tones it down by getting technical. He explains that he's able to instantly absorb most of the energy in a core, which allows him to temporarily utilize a much more explosive power. Gel thinks hard about that explanation and wonders if Aang is talking about a similar burst of power as the squadron leaders when they activate their individual cores. Our boy doesn't know jack shit about any of that, but since the more technical explanation was provided on its own, he decides to go along with it and says yes. That makes the squadron leaders exchange glances with each other, and Aang can only hope that they believe in his story. If whatever he says is true, then the edgelord comments that Aang really must be a genius. Tainted entertains the theory as well, and wonders if Aang used the same power to defeat the different one-fin demons on both occasions. Our hero now gets elaborate with his explanation, stating that the first encounter with the One Fin was when he discovered his powers. His body was able to absorb all the energy in the core, which he used to attack the unsuspecting demons with an explosive attack. And since his body couldn't stand the sudden surge of power, he ended up collapsing on both occasions. Tainted looks at the boy with a stout expression, thinking that if his words are true, it would explain why the core on his chest was found in pieces. It probably happened because his absorption powers were beyond the inferior core's limits. But even if it all makes sense in theory, the leaders can't help but wonder if that is indeed the whole story. It's still a bit hard for them to narrow everything down to Aang being a genius. Still, Gel gives him the benefit of the doubt and advises him not to use his power too much, since he probably can't control it. She adds that the squadron leaders use a similar method to draw out the core's power, but their bodies can withstand it because they have undergone a lot of training. This is when Tainted cuts off her explanation and proposes a trial run with our hero. He wants to test Aang's powers, so he can know for himself if he's really a genius. I guess he still has some lingering doubts about our boy's identity, so he lets out a threatening aura and asks Aang to step out into the arena, where they can test him to his limits. A few moments later, we now stand in the warrior's arena, where the teacher and his student are face to face against each other. Our Aang dons his battle suit to get ready for the test, and there's no doubt in his mind that the squadron leaders are still wary of him. But all of that will soon disappear as Tainted slams his hands on the ground, ready for battle. He assumes a crouching animal position, taunting our boy to come and fight him. Aang is a bit nervous to see his murderous intent and worryingly states that he's hoping for a friendly match. But the squadron leader is now starting to resemble a mad bull, and even though the man's technique is very basic when compared to Aang's former self, his current body is still too weak to keep up with Tainted. Once again, he looks at the core on his chest and wonders if he should use the demon's power to prove his point. However, there's not enough time to think, as the mad bull is charging, and our hero has to take some action. Tainted's first strike is a right hook, which misses our boy as he manages to dodge out of the way by falling back. The massive leader then focuses his energy on his leg, as the ground under his foot caves with pressure, and launches it directly at our hero's face with air-cutting speed. Once again, Aang manages to dodge it. But as we can see from his expression, he definitely didn't expect such lethality. As the leader draws back his kick, and Aang looks at the devastation caused by his blow, he's now made sure that Tainted isn't here to fuck around. Gel gets worried that the yellow-haired hothead is forgetting to hold back, so she warns Tainted to not go overboard. As the squadron leader comes to a halt in front of our hero, he commends him on his agility. Even if he's weak otherwise, the leader states that his movement is not bad. Aang knows that such praise is useless for him, since he was able to move out of instinct due to his experience from his past life. But when it comes to his current self, he is already reaching his limit. Not to mention, he gets no room to breathe as Tainted comes down at him with yet another devastating blow. The punch hits the ground, and massive shockwaves start traveling in all directions, uprooting the arena. The blow this time was even more powerful, and it left a massive crater in his vicinity. Once again, Aang was able to sprint out of harm's way, wondering why the leader is destroying the arena as if it were his own property. But just as he pauses to think of something irrelevant, massive hands of death approach him from behind, taking instant advantage of his carelessness. The leader manages to grab our hero by the neck, which leaves him no option to escape. As Tang towers over the tiny Aang, he's a bit disappointed that the fight is ending so quickly. To give him another chance, he trips our boy's legs with a sweeping kick, and sends him crashing down against a wall on the west edge of the area. The other leaders get worried about the warrior's safety when they see this, but Tang stays his ground in anticipation. The edgelord is afraid that their friend might be losing control, so he wants to put an end to this nonsense. However, Jel still puts some faith in Tang. She knows that he's not someone to overdo things, and wants to wait just a little longer. On the other hand, the squadron leader in question is still hoping for some proper retaliation from our hero. He wants to see the strength of a genius. As it turns out, Aang emerges mostly fine from the dust, and his focused eyes tell us that he hates being underestimated. As he gets up, our boy recalls that the warriors in his past life referred to him as a king, and compared to his power from back then, Tang is nothing more than a child. He was boastful enough to call himself a genius, and he knows that he will fail the test if he can't prove his claims. But since he knows that his current body can't live up to such standards, he decides to borrow some power from the demon king inside him. It may be childish of him, but as Aang stands there relishing in his overflowing power, he feels that he has all the right reasons to act a little selfish. All three squadron leaders witness their student's new aura, which is clearly overtaking the visuals of the entire field. With the force of 1,000 men behind him, Aang moves towards Tang with a dramatic gait. The avatar of his former self can be seen behind him, as he warns his instructor that it's time to switch up the roles. But you see, Tang is able to sense something even more horrifying in his aura. Not only is he being stared down by Aang's original avatar, but the massive presence of the Crimson King behind him is straight up overpowering the poor leader. Aang is standing in a red field of his own, and his radiating demonic power is starting to do a lot more than threatening the squadron leaders. In fact, his synchronization rate with his core is rising rapidly, and even though the core itself is low-ranked, it's showcasing power far beyond its capacity. The other leaders can sense the rising synchronization rate as well, and Jel is now actually convinced that the Helios city might have found its first real genius. Judging from his aura, Tang is sure that the synchronization rate is above 40%, but crazily enough, it still shows no signs of stopping. From what he remembers, Sidu Lu's synchronization stopped at 39%, and she was already labeled a genius for that. But now, Aang has surpassed her by quite a sizable margin. But Tang has no room to draw some analysis, as Aang brings his attention back to him. Our hero tells him to not get distracted, because the real fight is finally about to begin. In the very next instance, Aang is inches away from the squadron leader, with his fist drawn for some serious damage. The punch finds its mark, and a burst of red energy tells us that the impact was quite strong. But of course, being the behemoth that Tang is, he blocks the attack with his bare arms, while also managing to commend Aang for his doubled stats. But the show isn't over, and Aang has some vicious follow-up attacks in his sleeve. You see, the first punch was just a feint, and this next kick is the real attack. Aang targets Tang's legs with the kick, and he definitely finds his proper mark. While reeling back from the pain and losing his balance, the squadron leader couldn't help but admire the young warrior's flawless technique. Not only did he catch him off guard with the feint, but he's also aiming for the weak spots. And now, the same self-proclaimed genius is down to the ground, winding up yet another sweep for the falling Tang. The kick comes out like a bullet and hammers the squadron leader's shoulder with pinpoint accuracy, stammering him backwards. By now, even the edgelord is impressed at Aang's way of fighting. His style shows that he's someone with decades of experience, which is really hard to understand from a mere cadet. But then, someone put a more astute observation to the table, claiming that it's actually not a smart move to engage in close combat against someone like Tang. The new commentator is Sidu's father, Uncle Zun, and I guess as someone who runs a literal dojo, his words should have some weight in this fight. Both Jel and the edgelord greet him with big smiles, and apologize simultaneously for using the dojo's arena to test their young warrior. Uncle Zun is afraid that the damage done to the area is beyond expectations, but the edgelord assures him that he will make Tang pay for everything. Of course, Sidu Zun laughs it off by saying that he doesn't mind, since he is also interested in seeing the fight of someone who bears the name of the strongest warrior to ever exist. That strongest in question is currently in a bit of a pickle, as Tang has managed to catch his kick with his hand. Thanks to his huge build, the squadron leader wasn't toppled off the ground, and our hero is now the one with the disadvantageous position. Tang's eyes gleam with excitement, and he warns his student that he's not one to lose his grip. This is when we get some background info dropped to us by Uncle Zun, who comments that Tang was always someone who was able to take advantage of the tiniest gap in his opponent's defense. Which means that for Aang, freeing himself from an ankle grab won't be easy. And as the squadron leader goes for yet another right hook on our hero, it is clear that Aang is basically fucked. But of course, that would only be true if our boy wasn't the main character of this manhwa. He shows an undaunting smile in the face of imminent danger, and as his aura avatar pops behind him once again, Aang announces that he's the one who has the squadron leader in the palm of his hands. He then jumps up into the air, arching himself back completely, while Tang stops for a moment to see what the fuck he's doing. And in the very next moment, Aang recoils back with a concussing headbutt to the squadron leader's forehead. His maneuver leaves everyone else surprised on the scene, because with the impact of the headbutt, Tang loses his grip entirely, and our boy has managed to free himself from the ankle hold. Tang is now holding his head from the pain. He really never expected the old headbutt technique. Aang is now airborne, and the giant human is repeatedly stepping back to stop himself from falling. As soon as Aang touches his feet on the ground, he immediately gets ready for the follow-up. In an instant, the boy launches himself forward like a bullet, and the squadron leader is once again on the defensive. But even with his forehead bleeding, Tang isn't one to go down so easily. He assumes a defensive stance to intercept our hero, fully ready for the onslaught of his attacks. The edgelord recognizes the furious expression of his comrade. He knows that Tang will no longer hold back. And before Aang can reach the leader at all, he jams his fists into the arena, creating a blockade of concrete around him. While still charging forward, Aang knows that his instructor is trying to attack and defend at the same time. And if that's the case, our boy pulls out his left arm to launch the perfect counterattack. A hand made of demonic aura shoots out from his arm, and after thoroughly crushing the concrete wall that protected the squadron leader, he has now turned the Crimson King's palm into a fist. Of course, nothing could have possibly prepared Tang for this situation, and he's forced to just stand there in a daze. To follow up on his majestic display of fighting prowess, Aang disappears right in front of Tang with his superhuman speed. He then reappears in the squadron leader's blind spot, still surrounded by the screen of dust from his attack earlier. Gel recognizes that to be the same technique as the one that Tang used earlier to grab our hero's neck, and the edgelord calls him petty for resorting to such tricks for revenge. Obviously, copying the instructor's technique wasn't so simple, and Uncle Zun is the first one to point that out. In fact, he comments that it's a showcase of the boy's incredible learning ability. Meanwhile, Tang is upset that his techniques are being used against him in the fight, so he decided to show Aang his place by attempting to crush him under his palms. But, just as Tang's arm crosses paths with Aang's fist, it becomes clear that he had missed his target. Uncle Zun immediately notices his miscalculation and informs the other squadron leaders that their friend has already lost the match. And he wouldn't be wrong either, because our boy has literally torn a torrent through the air with a single punch, which the squadron leader was obviously unable to block. But naturally, Aang made sure to miss the leader, and Tang knew right away that he did that on purpose. After that, he concludes the spar with the most badass way possible. He saves his instructor the embarrassment of loss, and comments that he could only win because he was going easy. If Tang hadn't shown him mercy at the start, he would never have stood a chance. And if in case you were wondering how the squadron leader missed his attack earlier, it was due to the concussion. Tang was actually seeing multiple images of our hero in front of him, which made him misjudge the actual target. But in any case, it is an undisputable fact that Aang now stands tall in the arena as the victor, and no one should have any further doubts about him being a genius. Tang closes his eyes in defeat and thinks about the meaning of the word genius, because the giant imprint of Aang's fist behind him makes it a bit difficult to conclude his extraordinary abilities with such a simple word. Even Uncle Zun is impressed beyond words, since this is the first time in his life that he has ever seen a warrior with such boundless potential. Just as the spar ends, everyone starts hearing multiple footsteps heading in the direction of the arena. And as it turns out, Aang's whole team has come to pay him a visit. The ever-so-bouncy Makoto is in the front, with Sidhu Liu and Lan Snow just behind her. Looks like they followed the sounds of the fight to check out what was happening. But of course, Makoto would have never expected to witness such an absurd sight. She looks at the utter destruction in the arena and asks Aang what the fuck happened while they were away. Aang tries to sweep it under the rug and simply replies that most of the damage was caused by the squadron leader. As the edgelord and Gel approach the two fighters, Sidhu takes a look around to admire the damage. She's a bit skeptical that a simple spar would have caused such chaos. Meanwhile, the edgelord teases Tang, telling him that he lost quite miserably. But while the big man might be embarrassed at his loss, Aang continuously tries to cheer him up by saying that he's a lot more used to fighting demons. At his continued show of maturity and respect towards his seniors, the dojo master couldn't help but laugh wholeheartedly. He tells the young warrior that there's no need to be so humble, and since he has sparred enough, he calls everyone back to celebrate the day with a good dinner. Aang thanks the master for his hospitality, and goes ahead while stating that he was really hungry. I guess summoning a demon king's power will make anyone's stomach rumble. Uncle Zun watches the boy leave, but his eyes stay as observant as ever. Aang is a young warrior who's not only strong, but also has the will of a seasoned veteran. He knows to handle things and let his seniors save some face, and he shows no lack of intelligence or potential. With all of that in mind, the dojo master turns to his daughter while showing a hint of seriousness on his face. I guess our old uncle found him a suitable partner for his daughter, so he asks her if she's interested in him as well. I swear, it's always the uncle characters who jump the gun when it comes to relationships. Needless to say, Sidhu's face was immediately blushed with awkwardness and confusion, because her father dropped the bomb out of nowhere. Although, I would be lying if I said I wasn't interested in knowing what she thinks of our boy. Continuing the heartfelt moment, everyone is present at the dinner table to munch down on some delicious food. Uncle Zun raises his cup to propose a toast to thank everyone sat at the table before him, and on behalf of the entire city, he thanks all the valiant warriors who fought for the citizens to the end. He addresses our boy as his eyes sparkle and widen. He thanks him for saving his daughter. But our hero, being the most respectful, bends down to honor the sect leader as he exclaims that there is no need to thank him. What kind of a father would not want such a man to be with his daughter, am I right? Aang raises his cup to drink when suddenly Tang Tang smacks his head with a fist of rage, and he asks why he is drinking when he's not even an adult. Keeping in mind the fact that all warriors need to be 18 to participate in the warrior exam, our hero attempts to convince the squadron leader that he is an adult. Jel laughs as she points out that Tang Tang is using this opportunity to enact revenge on Aang. And it seems Uncle Zun shares the same thought as he tries to break up the tension. He then looks at his daughter, telling her that everyone here is an adult so there are no restrictions on drinking tonight. Although, as Sidhu puffs up her cheeks like a hamster, it seems to me like she's not quite happy with her father at the moment. She sighs with a distressed expression as she recalls the moment, a short time earlier when her father dropped the bomb on her out of nowhere. He stands before her as he points out that the young man's potential is no different than hers. Sidhu gapes her mouth open in confusion as her father strangely, and in a weird manner, tells her that even someone who has a superiority complex would feel attracted to that young guy. I guess our boy really is rising in popularity among the fathers who are looking for a suitable guy to marry their daughter, and Sidhu, in a state of frustration, questions her father's traditional thinking. Sidhu clenches her fist in anger and frustration as she recalls the time when our boy pulled her collar and exposed her goods. She's convinced that Aang is a dummy. Meanwhile, Makoto seems to be enjoying herself being in Aang's company as she gazes at the food with such astonishment, you'd think she had never tasted meat before. Lan attempts to avert everyone's attention back to something important and questions Aang about how he managed to scare the one-fin demon away. While Aang struggles to generate a guided answer, Tang Tang fills out his words to tell that Aang is able to take a portion of the core's strength and use it temporarily to quadruple his strength. Jel, being as sexy as ever, mentions that Aang's ability is similar to that of their squadron leader, and she suggests that he must have unlocked the dormant ability when his life was in danger. She gazes at Aang with her pearly blue eyes to warn him of the dangers of utilizing this ability. It will put a great strain on his body, and the injuries will get progressively irreversible every time he uses it. The edgelord, in a conflict of taste, calls everyone's attention to tell that Tang Tang and Aang had just sparred. He raises his cup with a wide smile and commends Aang's incredible strength, yet he taunts that he needs more training, otherwise his body won't catch up to his strength. Our boy contemplates in a state of seriousness, as he is conflicted to tell the squadron leader that he has already absorbed 2 one-fin demon cores, one of them being the wood-type regeneration ability, allowing his weak body to regenerate instantly. A model of the nervous system tells of the fragile and fragmented parts of his body, as Aang exclaims that the amount of backlash his body experiences is not comparable. But, in a show of maturity, our boy decides that it is better for him to just let them think that his ability is similar to theirs, as he nervously laughs in agreement to their claims. Lan and Makoto seem to be quite impressed by Aang's amazing feats, as the pink bundle of energy captures a photo, while Sidhu glares at him under her shadow. Sidhu gazes upon Aang to realize that it's no wonder he was able to save her, since he possesses such incredible abilities. It seems to me that she's finally starting to see him in a new light. In a slight change of tone, Tang Tang mentions that Aang and Sidhu were initially to be met with the fate of punishment for sneaking out at night. But a loud sigh of relief is heard by everyone, as the squadron leader reclaims them to be redeemed for defeating the one-fin demon. The edgelord breaks up their short moment of pleasure as he reminds them of the team competition, and Jel adds to the gloomy pit to tell them that they are the lowest in their group. Aang shows a sense of commitment and determination as he clenches his fist and exclaims that their team will reach the top. Aang and the team members have worked diligently, as at this point we are told that a month has passed after the demon wave, and the competition for points have reached its peak. Seeing how they were still lagging behind the others, our party discussed between themselves to come to the important decision that they would find a fat sheep. The red-haired asshole from earlier grunts to ask who is challenging them for points, and his confused look is explained as we are told that Aang's plan was to bet on other teams using their points. The Black Gun group stands proudly as they ask Aang's team if they can even recall the last time they had fought. Sidhu crosses her arms in confidence like the badass girl she is, as she calls them out for 10 points in a solo battle. Continuing with the display of arrogance, the red-haired asshole puts up a mask over his mouth. There are a lot of points on the line, but he still agrees to the challenge, and he warns them that there won't be a squadron leader this time to stop him from beating them to a pulp. Aang's team faces off against the Black Gun group as the face mask on the red-haired guy sparks and crackles, and he instigates the fight to begin as he asks Aang to come at them. A number of people have gathered in the town battle arena to see the battle between the two teams take place. It seems like the crowd is not happy with the choice of teams that are supposed to fight. Our hero is as relaxed as ever, while the red-haired guy sparks a dispute among them as he asks Aang to back out while they still have the chance, if they don't want to come crying out that they were bullied by the other teams. But Aang calmly waits for the fight to begin, and mentions that the winner is yet to be decided. He then looks over to ask the red asshole why he is not representing his team as the captain. And the dude expresses concern as he believes that since the person Aang has up on the battlefield is a girl, they will use it as an excuse to not give them points after losing. But he mentions that thankfully, their team's captain is also a girl, and he believes that she is capable enough to face all of them. Aang smiles widely at this absurd claim, and he gazes upon the guy to advise him to not look down upon their captain either, because Sidu Liu is not your average helpless girl. Meanwhile, Makoto is busy doing Makoto things, and taking pictures of the fight before it even begins. Up on the stage, Liu slowly steps forward to her opponent, and she asks her to end this battle quickly as the sickly green aura of her wood core starts lining over her body. Sidu's opponent recognizes her as she mentions that she is known as the unsmiling Rakshasa. The girl then raises a sharp needle in her hand as it gives off eminent dark energy, and she questions to see how well Sidu will do against her. Best girl Sidu, with her amazing show of strength, appears before the girl in an instant as she warns her of her presence. Sparks fly upon the impact, and the girl is startled as she grits her teeth to block Sidu's powerful punch. Black Gun's vice captain was clearly caught off guard, as she didn't expect the agility of a blue core from someone who carries a green core instead. Sparks crackle over the girl's arm when Sidu touches it with a straight hand, and as she slides across the floor, she uses that energy to disarm her opponent. Sidu is right to conclude that though the older teams became warriors before them, they rely on their teamwork and cannot do shit against them when it comes to a solo battle, having no idea how to defend or attack. There is no chance for the opponent to break out of this situation as she realizes Sidu's trick. She has inserted her energy into the muscles so they would spasm out of control. Best girl Sidu undoubtedly wins this fight as her opponent is rendered motionless, which is an opening for her to attack. It is a well-known taboo in close combat. Sidu does not stop for one moment to let her opponent catch her ground as she bombards her with punches. And the red-haired guy does not believe his eyes as his best recruit fails to deliver, receiving strikes on all her tendons and joints. The Black Gun Group's team captain falls outside the bounds as Sidu looks down on her, and with a sense of superiority and grace, she informs her that the Sidu family is the best at close combat. By the way, let's take this chance to praise the cameraman once again. Dude is going way above his pay grade to provide us with excellent angles. Anyway, Sidu proudly walks away from the battlefield as she flicks her hair back and thanks her opponent for letting her win. The crowd of people chatter at the commendable performance from Sidu, and the Black Gun Group members rush out to call for their vice captain. Aang calls out to the asshole to remind him that he makes sure to transfer the 10 points to their team. And of course, he cannot accept the humiliation, as he hardens his facial expressions to show anger towards the incredible Sidu Liu. In order to redeem himself and his team, the asshole steps forward to ask Sidu if she dares to go against him next. He wants to increase the bet to 20 points, which definitely gets our girl's attention. She undoubtedly agrees to the fight, because she is convinced by the offer of 20 points as the idea seems desirable. But Aang raises his hand in between to leisure her from the burden, and he tells that their captain just finished fighting, so she will take a break. I guess our boy is finally attempting to make a move on Sidu, as he points at himself, passing a smile at her to tell that he will be going up instead. It seems like our hero has already gotten into the head of his opponent, because the red douche is only interested in fighting the captain. Aang knows how to deal with guys like him, and so he tries to reason with the guy by saying that he will only get a chance to fight Sidu if he manages to get through him first. He instigates anger in the opponent, like the persistent guy he is, and shrugs him off to say that it is okay if he does not have the courage to fight him. The Black Gun Group help their vice captain up, as she claims it to be a terrible attempt to start a fight. However, Aang's tactics work on the rage-filled bastard, as he agrees to fight Aang while mad-mouthing him like a child. Meanwhile, his team members simultaneously gape their mouth in shock that their captain actually got baited so easily. Lan turns his head to grab Makoto's attention towards Aang's fight, but she's just busy flashing pictures with her camera. A crowd of people step up close to the battle arena, as it is apparent that the two opponents facing each other are about to start their fight. The opposing captain raises his right arm and conjures up a blue weapon that emerges into his hands. The dude's strange new weapon is a modified blaster, which uses non-lethal air bullets instead of actual core energy. In other words, Aang doesn't have to worry about dying, but the bullets can still hurt him like a bitch if he gets hit. Aang is surprised to see the new advancements made in technology, as he recalls the time back in his day, when if gunners wanted to hone their skills, they had to bring out real guns to the battlefield. Regardless, our hero is as prepared as ever as he skips over the ground to warm up his limbs. The Black Gun Group's members all share the same arrogance and pride, which is quite evident when one of them hysterically mocks our hero and praises the captain's aim to be regarded as incredible amongst all warriors. It is hard to understand the moral context of the red-haired captain when he offers to let Aang use whatever weapon he wants and warns him not to blame the older teams of bullying when he loses. But being the well-calculated person he is, Aang strokes his chin to think about the weapon he wants to choose. He reminisces about the weapon he had used in his previous life, wondering if it is still in that place where he last saw it. Coming to conclusions to not use any specific weapon, our boy shows great confidence as he remarks that he will just use his bare fists. The red-haired captain widens his eyes as he smirks at our protagonist and questions his absurd statement. The other members of the Black Gun Group also share the same expression of astonishment when they hear the words come out of Aang's mouth. The red-haired captain arches his back to point and laugh loudly at our boy. He exclaims and questions if all newbies are this arrogant. Hasn't everyone had enough of the guy yapping around? Our hero shares the same expression while he plugs his ear with his finger and states that he should have a silencer up in his mask. A lion and rabbit are used as a metaphor as the red-haired captain tries to make a point that even a tiger hunting a rabbit will make its best efforts in killing the rabbit. The captain does not forgive the humiliation he has had to face after they lost those points, and he viciously glares at our hero, determined that he will take back those precious points. Our hero's core shines bright red. That's when you know he is ready for some action, and he calls for the captain to step forward as they begin the fight. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we agree with Lan when he says that he can't wait for the opponent team's reaction to the information that not only did Aang single-handedly defeated the one-fin demon, but he also won a spar against their squadron leader. All this talk about how great Aang is makes Sidhu question if the guy really is better than her. She exclaims that as team captain, she cannot be weaker than her teammates. But her face blushes up with awkwardness as she can't help but accept the fact that every time she sees the dummy's face, she is reminded of what her father had told her a month ago. Love is in the air, and I'm sure you can feel it too. The instructor's arm waves in the air as he asks both warriors to be ready, and he swings to begin the fight as Aang glares into the captain's eyes. The captain immediately moves away at a great speed as dust scatters all over the place. He is zipping through the arena, believing in the fact that the longer the range of the weapon, the stronger its damage gets, and he is determined to pierce 1,000 holes in Aang's body to enact his revenge. It seems like the odds are against our hero when Sidhu realizes that the captain is looking for a better position to shoot and immobilize Aang. But Aang stands it firmly as he closes his eyes and tells himself that since the squadron leaders know the extent of his strength, there is no point in hiding it any longer. As he envisions the Demon King's avatar reaching for him through the smoke, he realizes that if he is to fight him, he will need to regain the strength he had in his previous life. Or rather, he needs to get far stronger if he wants to stand a chance. The redhead is still skipping through the arena with his fancy show of footwork. He notices that Aang is spacing out, and the fury and rage filled inside him is imminent as he shouts at his opponent to die, just as he fires the weapon. A bullet made of compressed air shoots out of the weapon, and the severe recoil swings it hard in the captain's hand. No one compares to our hero when it comes to being the absolute badass, because his ember yellow eyes are dead focused on the bullet's trajectory, and he's ready to use his demonic powers. He instantaneously dodges the air bullet zipping beside him, making ample use of his seasoned battle instincts. With the momentum of his dodge, our boy curls up in a ball on the ground, before explosive forward towards his opponent. Aang speeds and cuts through the air as he approaches the captain, but the captain appears to be ready for Aang to rush him. He immediately adjusts the settings on his weapon, and pulls it out to point it at our boy using his right arm. He calls Aang a dumb fuck, as he shouts that his right arm is loaded with tracking bullets. Those same bullets zip through the air, leaving behind a trail of blue core energy. Not only are they hard to dodge, but even if a single one hits their target, the rest will follow suit. The bullets make up the shape of a net to try and capture Aang, as he bends down to find his ground and avoid getting hit at all costs. Water droplets emerge into the air from our hero's body as he concentrates on charging forward. He believes the situation to be perfect for him to showcase his strength. With the help of the water-type blue core, Aang manages to bend his body in such a way that all the bullets zip through the openings left out after his contortion. The Black Gun Group members are in a state of shock, as they cannot believe their eyes when Aang turns into literal water to dodge all the bullets. Meanwhile, the Red Captain is forced to lift up his heels to pull out the last trick up his sleeve. He is now airborne in front of Aang, with the tip of his weapon pointed at him, and claiming that he didn't want to resort to his ultimate weapon. A Black Gun Group member smiles grimly, as he knows that their captain's weapon is able to passively store up power, and can shoot out a powerful beam of energy when needed. Blue light shines brightly over Aang's face as the weapon boots in continuity, and the captain yells at Aang to see how he dodges the strengthened explosive bullet at such a distance. Our boy always has a way out of dire situations, and this is no pickle. He reaches out his hand as it glows green, and upon his command, roots protrude from the floor down below to hold down the captain as he looks to see what is happening. In concern of what is happening below, the captain turns his attention away from the gun aimed at Aang, and it misfires completely by shooting into the sky. Just as his line of sight was impaired, Aang emerges from the smoke to strike a powerful punch to the captain. The captain did not see this coming at all, which is evident by the fact that Aang is able to easily get close to him and break his hold of the gun with a single strike. Shoes squeak onto the floor as Aang swings his body, toppling over the captain. And with that momentum, he strikes a gut-wrenching kick to the captain in the chest. The Black Gun Group members call out in concern for their captain simultaneously, realizing the truth that their team has lost, once and for all. Aang holds his upper body kick position as the red-haired captain slides across the arena from its impact. Aang then stomps the captain's gun on the floor, and with his leg on top of the weapon and a huge-ass smile on his face, he demands the promised 20 points to be given to his team. The red-haired captain trembles in shock, not believing the fact that he has lost to a mere rookie. Meanwhile, Aang's team members cheer on for him to commend yet another feat, while Sidhu concludes that even she was not able to track his movements. After Aang won 30 points from the Black Sun Group, rumors started to spread like wildfire. Other young warriors were eager to battle their team, as you see tiny figurines represent our favorite group to be portrayed as devils, wound up in a circle as they mop the floor with all the challenging teams. Liu's team, after testing the fruit of their labor, started to use the rules of point battles to gain more and more points. Lan Snow won all of his fights with ease, and the girls of the team were undefeated in all of their matches as well. Needless to say, Aang kept making a name for himself as he easily outmaneuvered his every opponent. With each battle, there was a tremendous rise in their ranks, and we were now approaching the end of the month. The gang had reached the first place among the ranks of Tang Tang's squad, ultimately qualifying to participate in the final competition. Now, the final 3 teams will face off against each other in the grand finale. The enigmatic voice of the Edgelord praises the enchanting setting of the place, emphasizing its prehistoric significance. He also notes that as the final competition approaches, he has been observing the progress and growth of each team. The Edgelord then questions the rapid advancement of Liu's team. He inquires about the time it took for them to climb the ranks, acknowledging the challenge such a feat presents. Sexy Gel answers the Edgelord's query, explaining that the team engaged in matches against other teams to accumulate points, resulting in more wins than losses. In frustration, she clasps her head, commenting on the messy and desperate nature of such a method. She directs her protest at Tang Tang, implying he failed to intervene and rectify the situation. Tang Tang responds that the team relied on their inherent strength to amass points, justifying his non-interference. He highlights the team's initial strength with the presence of Liu and Aang. Expanding on the commendable team members, he praises Snow and Makoto, mentioning their notable contributions among the formidable members. The trio halts before a gate leading to the archaeological site. Breaking the silence, the Edgelord remarks that it's been years since a new squad has entered the finals, underscoring the event's growing reputation. Tang Tang motions for his team to follow as he places his palm on the gate. The gate opens with a radiant glow, splitting into 2 halves. The team passes through the gate and is greeted by the massive battle arena before them. Team members from other squads seated along the pathway turn their heads to watch the passing team. Tang Tang now eagerly anticipates discovering the champions of this competition. A pink-haired squad member remarks on the rise of a new, unnamed squad in the ranks this time. She directs her question to squadron leader Tang Tang, inquiring about the secret to their team's remarkable strength. Frustration shows on the girl's face as her squad members whisper to avoid being overheard. The squad is revealed to be the Starflower Squad, led by Gel, an attractive and capable leader. The Edgelord's winning team is named the Brilliance Squad, and their leader responds to the girl's query as he casually occupies his seat. He informs her that the unnamed squad is actually composed of newbies. Initially thinking they were exaggerating, he admits that their strength has proven to be true. Meanwhile, Makoto is busy stretching her body in a rather interesting manner, her legs reaching for the sky. She observes the buzz among the seats, concluding that everyone is preparing. But unfazed by everything, she continues capturing pictures with her camera. Snow strikes a pose for Makoto's camera, mentioning that the Starflower and Brilliant squads, led by the Edgelord and Gel respectively, are the strongest. This popularity contributes to their reputation in Helios City. He then goes on to share rumors that 3 squad leaders who will replace Tang Tang might be chosen from among these 2 squads. Aang overhears Snow's speculation, stretches in preparation for battle, and questions the strength of these squads. He acknowledges the rumors, suggesting that their team might need to put in more effort if such is the case. Aang starts to speculate on his own, expressing his belief that while his body is his weakness, his secret ability, similar to the strength of the one-finned core warrior, allows him to face anyone with confidence. With a touch of arrogance, our hero wonders about the reward for reaching the top position. On the other hand, Gel gracefully strides onto the battleground, drawing everyone's attention. Once all eyes are on her, she calls for all squads to gather up. Once again, I can't give enough praise to the cameraman for such immaculate angles. Anyway, the Starflower squad rushes up to Gel at her first call, their excitement evident as they squeal upon seeing their team leader. Comprised entirely of girls, the squad gathers around Gel in admiration of her beauty, expressing their readiness to secure the first place in the competition. And if they win, they implore her to lead them to B-class cities for shopping. At that very moment, another squad approaches Gel. The squad leader warmly embraces Gel, and their voice reaches out to the Starflower squad, advising them to set more substantial goals. The leader of the Brilliance squad steps forward, stating that his squad eagerly anticipates encountering formidable warriors in B-class cities and engaging in sparring matches with them. The leader of the Starflower squad reacts strongly to the display of arrogance and belittlement. She shouts, emphasizing that purchasing clothes is just as significant for the girls as meeting strong warriors. Tainted and the edgelord make an entrance before the squads, gracefully landing on the battleground amidst swirling smoke. They comment on the youthful enthusiasm displayed. Both squad leaders marvel at the dramatic entrance made by their seniors. Joel, the squadron leader, observes the squabble between the two squad members and jests about whether they're going to fight until they fall for each other. This directs the ire toward the edgelord, who's questioned about his consistent flirtatious comments. Realizing the absence of the third squad, Tainted scans the area to locate them. Upon spotting the distant group, he calls out to Team Liu, urging them to gather nearby. And following Tang's instruction, Team Liu follows Sidu Liu as they advance, preparing for the final battle to unfold. Needless to say, they all look ready for the challenge. The teams line up before the squadron leaders as Tang addresses them, stating that since everyone should be familiar with each other, introductions aren't necessary. Tang explains the battle rules, outlining that the finals will consist of two segments, a team competition and a solo battle. He emphasizes that the victor will be determined by accumulating points from each segment. Gel adds that they will provide detailed rules as the battle begins, but to ignite the squad's competitive spirit, she teases that they will reveal the competition's rewards. With a wink, she confidently declares that she knows everyone's aiming for the top spot, promising that the reward will not disappoint. Fueling excitement, the edgelord announces that the first-place team will have the opportunity to intern for a week in a B-rank city. The announcement triggers applause and celebration, as everyone appears elated with the competition's reward. However, our hero stands puzzled, seemingly not fully grasping the excitement. Snow engages in conversation with Makoto, expressing enthusiasm over the unexpected reward, and inquiring about her plans for their time in the B-rank city. Predictably, the girl declares that she intends to acquire another camera. And then, Tang summons the team leaders to step forward and draw the lots. The three team leaders comply, stepping forward simultaneously while the commotion behind them continues. Evidently, the B-rank city is a sought-after destination for everyone. Conversations among the team members around our hero revolve around the exciting features of the B-rank city. Meanwhile, Aang is just lost in thought while stroking his chin. He sinks into profound contemplation, admitting his ongoing confusion since his reincarnation nearly a century ago. He remains bewildered by many aspects of his new reality. As he reflects on the world's hierarchy of cities, he recalls a time when cities fought for survival individually in his past. He also remembers Snow informing him that Helios City falls under the C rank, one of the lowest ranks, and the hierarchy progresses with each city assigned to its respective rank. With this enlightening information, the system of hierarchy in this world becomes clear. C-rank cities house warriors with 1 or 2 finned cores, while higher up in the hierarchy, they include warriors with 2 or 3 finned cores. He notes that warriors possessing fin cores extending up to 5 fins are considered at the top of the hierarchy, classified as A-rank cities. Beyond that, an S-rank city exists, the unique Breaking Dawn City, which assesses all other cities. The Breaking Dawn City, known as the City of Hope, occupies a central location and is touted to be enormous in scale. It stands as the sole city containing the world's strongest 7-finned core warrior. Aang ponders his past life, comparing his leadership of a city to the grandeur of the Breaking Dawn City. He wonders how his own city fares in comparison, but a sigh escapes him as he contemplates whether his city still exists after the massive battle that unfolded 60 years ago. Lost in these reminiscences, he also speculates on the fates of his comrades from that time, contemplating whether they managed to survive the intense battle. His reverie is broken when a voice calls out to him. Joined by Snow and Makoto, they step forward. Snow playfully chides him for his frequent daydreaming, while Makoto urges him to focus on the present. She points towards Liu, who stands by the lotting box in front of the team leaders, and excitedly exclaims that it's their time to shine. Liu holds a card displaying the number 1, tilting her head to convey that they're the first to compete. As Team Liu faces off against the Brilliance squad, the announcer's voice resonates in the air. The announcer informs that all weapons have been switched to training weapons, as the first round kicks off between the two teams. Makoto points out that their team is still without a squad title, encouraging them to brainstorm cool squad names. Snow chimes in, agreeing with Makoto that they should come up with a name that makes their team sound impressive when it's announced. Aang joins the conversation, noting that the idea isn't half bad, and suggests discussing potential names after the ongoing battle. As the other team members playfully discuss potential names, Liu's nerves become evident as she expresses her anxiety. The brilliant squad leader glares at their opponents, questioning how a seemingly lackadaisical team intends to secure the first spot in the competition. Ready to face off, he instructs his team members to choose their opponents, while he takes on Sidu Liu. Naturally, his team members respond obediently to their leader's call. Sidu Liu confronts the brilliant squad leader, while Tang Tang and his team stand above. Tang Tang raises his arm, and with a sweeping motion, signals the start of the competition. The brilliant squad leader promptly orders his team to scatter, positioning himself to face Sidu Liu. His team members heed his command, dispersing around the battlefield to encircle our hero and his companions. Sidu Liu analyzes the opponent's tactics, speculating that they are aiming for solo battles, and if the opponent's strength surpasses their own, she acknowledges it as a viable strategy. Nonetheless, she laments that they will fight as a united team. Leading the charge, Sidu Liu and her team rush forward, their respective auras pulsating through their bodies. Aang also assesses the situation, deducing that Sidu Liu understands the opposing team's strategy. He concludes that their best approach is to target the opposing team's leader immediately. Aang perceives Sidu Liu's determination as he identifies a major flaw in solo battles, which is the fact that each individual fights for themselves. In a team battle, if the team leader falls, it negatively affects the team's morale. Aang praises Sidu Liu for recognizing this vulnerability and turning it to their advantage. A brilliant squad member observes the situation and contemplates whether they should also target the leader first. Based on this insight, the brilliant squad shifts their focus back to our heroes, deciding to change their strategy. They collectively charge towards Sidu Liu, now aiming to take down the opposing team leader. Sidu Liu observes the approach of the rival squad and swiftly coordinates her own team, urging them to stick together and provide mutual cover. The team listens to their captain as she rushes forward to approach the brilliant squad leader, while the others hold off the squad that approaches their leader. The brilliant squad leader's eyes grow narrow as the realization dawns upon him: Sidu Liu is targeting him. He prepares himself to face the opponent, assuming an assertive stance and wielding a blade. He exclaims, questioning if she thinks she can take him on, and warns her not to dare look down upon him. With a powerful step, he cracks the ground beneath him and lunges forward with full force to confront the oncoming opponent. Squad members battle fiercely, showing determination to protect their leader, while the leaders roar with determination, fighting for their respective teams. Proceeding, Sidu Liu approaches the brilliant squad leader, both prepared for their impending confrontation. The brilliant squad leader raises his palm, generating a potent energy blast that radiates with brightness. With her arms crossed, Sidu Liu confronts the luminous energy blast advancing towards her. The brilliance leader triumphantly exclaims, urging her to be consumed by his luminous attack. Recognizing the threat, Sidu Liu turns to her team members, warning them of the danger. She directs them to shut their eyes and shield themselves, explaining that her opponent can channel energy to create blinding light explosions. As the radiant energy blast envelops the surroundings, even the brilliance team members are impacted by the brilliance of the attack. Both Tang Tang and the other squadron leaders are taken aback by the unexpectedly intense light attack. Tang Tang questions whether the edgelord had cautioned the brilliance leader against using such an attack, which is more suited for solo battles. But the edgelord sighs, stating that he has given him advice on numerous occasions, even if he hasn't heeded it. The radiant light fills the battlefield, prompting the edgelord to surmise that perhaps the brilliance leader needs a setback to reconsider his combat style. As the intense light subsides, unveiling the battlefield, the brilliance leader stands firm, his determination unshaken. He adjusts the blade in his hand, confident that someone new like Liu wouldn't withstand his light attack. He firmly believes that her team will crumble once she's eliminated. But just as the brilliance leader is about to unleash the light attack, our courageous hero steps in, positioning himself between the attack and his comrades, shielding them. Aang wears a specialized watery visor over his eyes, allowing him clear vision despite the blinding light that affects his friends. He confronts the brilliance leader and questions whether he's aware that this attack also harms his own teammates. He then lifts his leg, arching his body, and then brings his leg down forcefully onto the brilliance leader's shoulder. The staggering strength and impact of the attack catch the brilliance leader off guard, sending him hurtling backward. Bewildered and surprised, the brilliance leader recovers from the assault and clenches his teeth in frustration, wondering when Aang managed to put on the watery visor. Our hero confidently points out that fighting in a team match without considering one's teammates is a grave error. Internally, he acknowledges his clever choice to employ the water element to counteract the blinding attack. As the blinding light fades, the battlefield becomes visible once more. Sidu Liu lands gracefully, acknowledging the restored clarity. However, she's taken aback to see Aang now positioned between her and the brilliant squad leader. Liu's eyes widen at our hero's unexpected appearance, standing resolute. Aang steps back with a confident smile, instructing his team leader to handle the remainder of the battle. With a satisfied step back, our hero permits Sidu Liu to take charge. As she confronts her adversary, Sidu Liu ponders Aang's bravery, impressed by his successful thwarting of the attack while everyone else was blinded. The battle recommences as Sidu Liu charges forward to strike her opponent, and Aang moves to the other side of his team leader, prepared to engage the remaining members of the Brilliance squad. Fueled by arrogance, the Brilliance squad leader questions Sidu Liu's audacity to attack him again. He intends to retaliate with his light attack once more. Much to his surprise, he realizes his arm feels numb, and he grumbles in frustration, suspecting that Aang dislocated his shoulder when he kicked him. Before he can react, Sidu Liu lands a powerful punch to his chest, her momentum causing his body to bend forward in pain. With a taunting tone, the girl concurs with his thought that battles should be concluded swiftly. Overwhelmed and overpowered, the Brilliance squad leader struggles to fend off her continuous barrage of punches and energy blasts. Amid the skirmish, Aang assists Sidu Liu by eliminating distractions in a comical manner. He playfully tickles and pinches opponents, enabling Snow and Makoto to focus on the battle. However, their lighthearted endeavors are disrupted when something significant grabs their attention, prompting them all to shift their gaze. Sidu Liu stands triumphantly over the defeated Brilliance squad leader as the dust settles. She addresses the Brilliance squad, informing them that their leader has been vanquished, and questions whether they still wish to prolong the fight. The Brilliance squad members are observed catching their breath and displaying expressions of disappointment. Their impending defeat is evident from their demeanor. Tainted verifies the outcome of this round, officially declaring it concluded, and the edgelord lets out a sigh tinged with expectancy. Gel, the commanding officer of the Starflower squad, notices the situation and points out that Aang has yet to employ his special ability. Tainted acknowledges her insight, his expression turning serious as he anticipates the deployment of our hero's unique ability. On the other hand, the Starflower squad reacts with gasps and exclamations upon witnessing the unexpected downfall of the Brilliance squad. Their team leader can't believe that the Brilliance squad actually lost against the newcomers, and wonders if it was only because of Sidu Liu. Refraining from confirming or denying such claims, the Brilliance squad leader expresses frustration at the loss. However, he does admit that they underestimated their opponents. Acknowledging that the Starflower squad is up next, he warns the squad leader about Sidu Liu's team and reveals their long-standing rivalry. After a short while, our hero and his team face their opponents with determined spirit, ready for the impending battle. Observing our hero's team, the Starflower squad leader reflects on the earlier warning from the Brilliance squad. She realizes her mood has been affected by that advice. Rising with authority, Gel, the squadron leader, declares the start of the next round. She introduces the two battling teams and announces the commencement of the duel. An intense rivalry ignites as both teams confront each other, each vying for the coveted first spot that leads to entry into the B-rank city. Charging forward, the Starflower squad's auras radiate around them, their eyes ablaze with battle fervor. The squad leader urges her team to not let Brilliance's words distract them, and to make sure that they maintain their formation. Snow's core glows and crackles with energy as he prepares to unleash a powerful punch, channeling all his strength into the blow. Striking the ground, he causes it to crack open with tremendous force. A protective dome-like barrier emerges, shielding the team members as the ground shatters. Undeterred by the onslaught, the Starflower squad presses forward with unwavering determination. Recognizing the incoming opponents, and considering their approach favorable now that Makoto is guarding him, Aang signals with a raised finger. Green energy crackles around his hand as he commands the roots to rise. Surprising the Starflower squad, tree roots emerge from the ground, ensnaring them and hindering their movement. They struggle and cry out as the unexpected tree roots immobilize them. At this point, I'm pretty sure that the author watches a lot of hentai. Our hero observes the success of his attacks on the opponents, reflecting that the absorbed demon elements, wood and water, continue to prove effective. He contemplates the remaining unidentified elements and wonders what kind of use they can provide him in the future. Recognizing the opponent's immobilization, Sidu Liu signals Snow to take charge. As the warrior steps forward, he envelops himself in a dome barrier, advancing towards the immobilized foes, ready to strike them like a bowling ball. However, the Starflower squad manages to evade the tree root's grasp, and disperses across the battlefield to evade Snow's attack, while he charges through the arena. The Starflower squad leader tightens her expression as they navigate the unforeseen situation, and with their formation disrupted, she urges her members to regroup immediately. Suddenly, Sidu Liu and the ever-so-bouncy Makoto appear before the squad leader, coordinating a joint attack. They catch her off guard, striking her simultaneously and overwhelming her defense. The squad leader urgently calls for her teammates' assistance, but she witnesses them struggling against the remaining opponents, compounding her predicament. Her gaze fixes on our hero as he lands punches on two of her team members, causing them to falter. In the middle of the battle, the team leader's eyes waver, and her thoughts shift to Brilliance's warning about Aang's strength, perceiving him as the most formidable member of their team. A scene depicts our hero shadowing over a chessboard, symbolizing the battle arena, and chess pieces symbolizing team members. The Brilliance squad's leader remarks on Aang's ability to unify the battlefield, implying his strategic prowess. And while she was thinking about that, Makoto seizes the squad leader's momentary distraction, capitalizing on her daydreaming. But that doesn't startle her opponent too much, as she reveals that she's an agility user who can easily evade her attacks. The squad leader evades Makoto's initial attack while airborne, but is astonished when Makoto instantly appears before her, revealing her own agility. As it turns out, our bouncy girl is an agility core user as well. In the very next instance, Makoto Swirl opens her leg towards the cameraman, but it's not just to give us a special view. Swiftly, the girl uses her leg to trap the squad leader in a chokehold. The leader struggles against Makoto's hold, unable to break free, but I dare say that I would like to know how it feels. I know you're raising your eyebrows at that, but I'm just your average man who worships thickness. Anyway, the squadron leaders and Tang observe the commotion, realizing that the battle's outcome seems certain. Gel notes the pattern of Sidulu's team emerging victorious, and the edgelord can't help but comment how they haven't lost a single match in the entire tournament. After the intense battles, the teams line up before the squadron leaders once more. They announce the initiation of solo battles, in which team leaders can challenge a member of the opposing team. The Brilliance and Starflower leaders both exchange glances with each other, ready to pick out the same opponent. Both of them gesture towards our hero, indicating their desire to challenge him, almost making it feel like they have a score to settle. Tang expresses disappointment at their dispute, explaining that solo battles are one-on-one affairs. He tries to mediate and determine which of the two leaders will fight Aang first. However, our hero interjects with a solution, suggesting that both of them face him simultaneously to save time. He wants to deal with both of his challengers in a 1v2, and you can bet that the two leaders are taken aback by his unexpected proposal. But regardless, their eagerness to challenge him is still evident behind their blackened expressions. I'm pretty sure our boy will wipe the floor against these two, but I can't help but get hyped about how this battle may turn out. Do you think it's possible that Aang suffers defeat from these hot-headed leaders? Or do you think one-sided victory